Welcome. I'm Josh Mason, for those who don't know me. Uh, Formerly a C-130 pilot in the Air Force and cyber warfare officer. Actually, I realized it's May 14th. Um, 7 years ago today, my commander, after 6 months of being a cyber warfare officer and flight commander, told me that he didn't see me having a future in cyber. And uh, he was leaving to go to the Pentagon and hooked me up with a job teaching at the Special Operations School. So, uh, that kind of led to everything else. So kind of a weird thing to remember, but I think of it as a great day because I stopped going to a bunch of stupid staff meetings and actually got to talk to people like this. So um, got out of the Air Force, taught at the Defense Cybercrime Center's Cyber Training Academy. I taught digital forensics. I taught PowerShell. I taught cyber threat emulation, how to do junior pen tester stuff with Python, and teaching people how to use Metasploit for the first time. It's a lot of fun. Worked at INE. You might have taken EJPT version 2. If you liked it, you're welcome. If you didn't like it, it was Alexi's fault. And then someone introduced me to sales and sales engineering. And sorry, I'm the asshole who didn't put my stuff on Do Not Disturb, and it's distracting me. Um, got into sales engineering and realized it's like teaching, except I get to talk to leaders who buy stuff and explain to them how to actually improve their programs. So I miss talks like this are my opportunity to connect with my fellow practitioners again, because I spend most of my time trying to sell to uh, federal execs. Fun, but it's different. I This talk is not just for pen testers. I know I started with Pentest, Pivot, Esclate, but I needed a base to start from. I imagine, raise your hand if you're a pen tester. Yeah, that's why I started with Pentest. Not everyone is a pen tester. If you're not a pen tester and you're curious if you're going to get anything out of this, just imagine something similar in that initial piece that relates to uh, alerts, logs, audits, etc. You're going to come up with some findings, and then you'll decide how to share those in a valuable way. That's what the rest of the talk's going to be about. So, quick show of hands, who has done a pen test and then come back, done a pen test like a year later or 6 months later, and found basically the exact same vulnerabilities? Yeah, it happens. It happens way too often. At one point in my past, I was a project manager at a pen testing firm, and I managed a bunch of pen testers. Basically, I got to do all the boring stuff like talk to clients, set up the statement of work, ship the stuff, make sure the pen test is running nicely, check in like, hey, are we logging our vulns, and like putting things into PlexTrack, which I hated, and then like at the end pulling shit out of PlexTrack, actually making it human legible and useful, and then sending that off to the client. Yes. I'll just say I don't do that anymore. Now I'm at Synac where I don't have to do any sorts of reports like that. It's a whole different thing. That's another talk for another time. But if you're a pen tester and you're curious about Synac Red Team, we can talk later. I'll stop that. Sorry. We don't have to keep turning in the same vulnerabilities and seeing them ask for a pen test, get the pen test report, and you go, great, thank you. We've checked that box. Now we have a pen test. Because I imagine you got into security for a lot of the same reasons as everyone else, is to make a difference and help, to improve security, to make things more stable, to make sure that the apps that you're using are secure and that your data is not going to get ruined by whatever tool or software you're utilizing. And so you might not be pen testing that, but if you were, you've got a little bit of a vested interest, but also you just want to improve things, right? I bet I'm not alone. When I was in the Air Force, it was like, hey, who joined to make the world better? A lot of us. Did we? That's another talk. More beer. But we have righteous reasons. Well, hopefully I can give you some tools and some ideas so that you can give feedback that won't just get added to the pile of stuff that we're not going to get to. So I work at Zinec now. Uh, our mission is to improve continuous high quality testing, um, essential to vulnerability management and like DevSecOps. But we use our researchers to do the tests, find the vulnerabilities, and then report those back. I did a lot of, like I said, consulting before. Even on my own, I have Mason SC. If you're in cybersecurity and you don't have your own LLC, you're probably about to get one, I bet. It's just the way it is. Because people come up to us and say, "Hey, can you help me out with my cybersecurity program?" It's like, "Yeah, but I don't want you to just send me cash. Like, let's set up something so I don't get screwed." Yeah. I've had clients who they got back a pen test report, or they got back a SOC audit, or a PCI DSS report, and they're like, "Okay, now what do I do with it?" And I've helped them try to figure some of this stuff out. So I've been at the point of trying to make these vulnerabilities not suck, and then people who get in a bunch of vulnerabilities know what to do with them. And it's put me in like special mindset that I hope I can share with you. One of the things I think about is I read a lot of books and I talk about them a lot. No one knows that, unfortunately. One of them is the Phoenix Project. This is like the logo off the front. Who's read the Phoenix Project or the Unicorn Project? Okay, that's fine. You should. It's a great book. And if you want one, I'll buy you one. We'll talk about that later. Basically, there are 4 types of work in the world, in any job. The first type of work is the work that we're doing. This is our mission. This is like what the company does. If we turn out a tool, if we have a website, Amazon, you know, a site to allow people to buy stuff. Then there's the second type of work, which is improving technology, improving your workflow for your team. The third type of work is supporting other things in the company that aren't necessarily your team's internal project, but other teams' internal projects. They are supporting that first type of work. And the fourth type of work is a real painful one. This is where we get screwed. This is where we end up. Cybersecurity in general, not just pen testers. But the fourth type of work is unplanned work. And you probably run into this yourself. Like the first type of work, you probably, like, to put it into personal context, you're planning for, say, unfortunately, you have to go to work tomorrow. You know, I have these meetings, I have these projects that I'm working on, I got to turn out this stuff, like first type of work. And then someone sends you a Slack message, or if you're screwed, a Teams message. And you're like, damn it, I'm not going to get anything done because I got to put out this fire. That's the fourth type of work. That's unplanned work. Now, so much of that eats up everyone's time, you don't have the ability to do the first, second, or third type of work. That's when you get behind. That's when you have technical debt, when you can't patch things, when you can't improve the GUI because we don't have the downtime. Or when we do have the downtime this weekend, we have to fix a critical bug. So users are still going to be upset, but we'll fix this bug. But we can't get to the security thing yet. That's the sort of stuff that like really pisses off a lot of technologists. Is you get so behind, so much technical debt. If we can shift what we're presenting from being something that ends up in that fourth type of work, something that actually supports the first or like the second and third type of work, where it flows into helping the company actually meet its goals, it's in the end going to be doing the same thing. A lot of it's going to be in how we present it. And I'm autistic. I learned recently that I'm autistic, and it kind of like, okay, everything makes sense now. The Phoenix Project, How to Win Friends and Influence People, Influence, a lot of these books where like, I don't know, I've made it a long time without pissing off too many people. But it don't just come to it. Like I got to roll high and I've got like a -1 to charisma. but I'm lucky. And so books like this have taught me how to start thinking in those other terms. I grabbed an MBA. I was an officer in the Air Force, thinking about the mission, the operation, the end goal of the company is more what I think about than the vulnerability. I'm actually quite a shitty hacker, but I'm a pretty decent teacher and a much better salesman. So I found my spot. If we start to recognize that we see things different than other people, security, we see the nitty gritty. We know that like this vulnerability can really screw the company. We could fail an audit. We could get fined. The business doesn't want to hear all of that. Like, don't bring me problems, bring me solution. Who's ever heard that? Maybe personally, maybe in like a movie or a book. When we find vulnerabilities, they're usually a sign of a deeper problem. So this is where start thinking about pen tests that you've been on. If you're doing a web app pen test and they've given you like 8 domains, and you find cross-site scripting on all of them, or just any sort of IDOR across all of them. Like this one's easy. What's the root cause? Anyone say it?
Yep, programmers.
No input validation? No input sanitization? Probably, yeah, no secure code practices. So I want to take us through the 5 whys. It's a process for finding root cause analysis. Just it can work for anything. But you find a whole bunch of input injection through search bars, through username and password, whatever. Dates. Like I said, I'm a shitty hacker. I kind of understand this stuff. I can do it. I can show it to you if I set it up right. But in the end, you know that like if you're putting something in there and it's not getting sanitized or validated, if you can do a simple SQL injection and it spits out crap that it's not supposed to, like that's a problem. That's an easily solved problem in the end. If you can get I know the Python is like, is like 2 lines of code, and then you can just repeat that anytime you've got input, and it'll make sure that like you've only got certain types of input that'll be validated, that'll be allowed. The JavaScript is actually rather easy for that sort of thing. But why does it get through? Because they're not thinking about putting sanitization in. Why aren't they thinking about putting it in? Because there might not be a style guide, or there might not be training on it, or they might just not know. Well, why aren't there those? Because there aren't any secure coding practices, and onboarding might have issues. If you find all this stuff, you don't know that that's the cause, but if I told you that was the cause, you'd be like, yeah, I bet. What else might be the causes? If you find other vulnerabilities, other findings, or you're doing OSINT, because that's the first part of a pen test. And even if you're not a pen tester, we all like to do a little bit of OSINT, especially on a client, on a target. If we can find these things, then we can start thinking about, okay, if I help them to put in a process where they train their new software people, and frankly, if you know enough coding in like the language that they're using, where if you're a solo practitioner or pen tester, and you can offer them now, hey, I can give you guys either a free class, or we can set up classes where I can teach your coders like how to have secure coding. 1, that's more business for you. But 2, what it really does is it shifts things again from the 4th type of work back up to, can you improve their teams, improve what they're doing? And even better, I'll get to how do we move things into that 1st type of work so that the CEO goes, I want exactly what you're talking about. Business-centered thinking. Like I said, I was working on my MBA and finished it before I got my CISP. I actually had May 8th of 2018 is when I finished my last MBA class and got my diploma. And then May 14th is when my boss told me I didn't have a future in cyber. So I was fine. But my mind always goes to business stuff first. CEOs, COOs, CFOs, they talk in business terms. If you want to be a really good CTO or CISO, talk in business terms, because then they'll want to talk to you. I'm talking to you guys using pen testing as the starting point, because you're a lot of pen testers. If I was talking about omelets, you might not be as interested. And some people might get that later. If we can hand them, instead of, here are all the vulnerabilities that we found, so the criticals, the highs, and like, that's important. And like, how did we find them? How do we fix them? Your report should include all those things. That's a good pen test report, because the technical people will want that. But if in your executive summary and in your analysis, you can talk about, in order to become more competitive in the market, to increase your shares or your revenue, you guys can implement this or that into the other because your competitors are. If you start with that sort of thing, and then say, by instituting secure coding practices, which are related to all these findings that I found, now the CEO, when he reads that, he's gonna be like, oh, hot damn, this is useful. This is something we can like make a plan around. And shit, I want these guys to pen test next year too. Got something for you. So those are some of the basics. Let's pivot. This is the pivot piece. We found a whole bunch of stuff. We've started to think about some of the small stuff. How do we use it? 5 whys. I got really excited, so I went really fast. Input wasn't sanitized. Why wasn't sanitized? Because they didn't validate inputs. Wasn't validated because no guiding or guidelines or training, because they don't have a good onboarding or DevSecOps process, because they probably just don't have a very mature software development lifecycle. There's a lot of things that you probably know, even as a pen tester, about how to do a good CI/CD pipeline. There's training not just in secure coding, but in like quality coding that you might be able to provide them that would help in so many more ways than just telling them the bugs. Not just to create more business, but no shit to help them. Right? Similar to how I've learned to think about things through training and books, we have blueprints, we have frameworks. Most of us, I don't know, we learn cybersecurity a lot of the same way. CIA Triad, NIST CSF, CIS 18. A lot of people who've been around for a while came up with, okay, what should organizations prioritize and worry about and think about in order to be secure? They came up with these frameworks for us. So if you're new in college, you haven't been around to see like all the fires or be a part of trying to put out all these fires over years, other people put together frameworks for us. We can learn from their problems. We can also use them then to help deliver solutions. And I know this isn't like terribly new ideas. You all seem very bright, but I just want to get in your mind where we're going with this. So who knows NIST CSF 2.0? A little bit, you know that it exists? Okay. NIST, National Institute of Science and Technology, was put in charge of figuring out a good framework for critical infrastructure and came up with the NIST CSF controls and categories, subcategories. There's like 103 subcategories. They break down to different types of controls for solving your problems. Not every organization is going to need every single one of the controls or be mature enough to be able to implement all of the controls. But with some of their tiering, some of the models that they've got for different industries, you can get an idea of a starting place if you don't have one already. Been around for a while, you've done enough CISO work, you've done security architecture for someone, you already probably know this stuff. But for those of us who are getting started, we might just, read through the NIST CSF. Well, Sunil Yu, when he was a CISO, he was like, this is interesting, this is useful. I've got 80 different vendors for all our different tools. How do the vendors map to the NIST CSF controls? And so he came up with the Cyber Defense Matrix. And it's open source, it's OWASP tool, Cyber Defense Matrix. It's really cool. He's got a book. I think you can download it for free off cyberdefensematrix.org or something like that. Great guy. Spoke like 4 or 5 times at RSA this last year. One of my friends, Stefan Summeroth, he was a cyber officer in the Army. He took the Cyber Defense Matrix, and instead of thinking about the tools, he had this idea of solving people problems with people functions, not tools. So the way that ends up working, and the way I want to present this to you all, is if we can think about solutions, tools, processes that we can suggest, because if you're a pen tester, you might not be thinking about all the different controls. And I don't necessarily want you to. I don't want you to memorize it in CSF. But if you have a tool that you can go to and be like, their apps have nothing that identifies when like shit goes wrong, or they've got nothing to detect or even respond. Like, what could I suggest to them? So Stefan came up with a few of these like setups, and I'll get this all to you. It's on GitHub. This is like what's the word? Table stakes. This is table stakes. If you've got an organization, you got 200 people, you got someone in charge of cybersecurity, you should be thinking about like having these implemented in whatever order makes the most sense for your organization. Like managed EDR, it could be yourself managing your EDR. You should have EDR. You should have someone looking at alerts and be ready to respond. Have managed patching, either internally or a SaaS provider. You should have some sort of VPN for the times where you need people connected to the network safely. Awareness training is kind of an obvious one. Even there's a whole debate about how well it'll help, but should have it. MFA, email security, identity and access management. If you're in Google or M365, hopefully you've got those like locked down. Having a vCISO or someone who helps come up with policies and advises. And frankly, if your client doesn't have that, you could be a baby version of that. Going from a pen tester to a CISO is just starting to think like how I'm trying to present this to you. Once you get the gist of this, you can do it. Device backups and VMs backups. Like that's table stakes. You're like that, those are all things I could set up. I'm not even a security engineer, and I could probably set those up, right? That's the base level. Then we've got insurable. If an organization wants to be able to get cyber insurance, this is kind of what they'd be expected to also have. So like Cloudflare, Zero Trust, be getting some pen tests, code testing, and those can go. That's extra business. That's something I'm trying to push with my clients at Synac is shift left. If we can get into their development environment instead of testing their public websites, we can get them value faster. But setting up managing your own DNS and PAM, some more intense stuff. If your customer is trying to get insurable, but looks like this, and you're finding stuff, can your pen test report suggest some ways that they can improve their maturity? Here are some things that you might think about to suggest. Does that make sense? And then this is like the whole shebang. This is what regional banks put in. Some of the names changed as they got even more intense, SASE instead of just Zero Trust. It's a lot. But now we've got every box with something in it. So if they're not noticing when there's account takeover. Okay, shit, we need to think of a solution that's in that detect for users. And there's a bunch of tools that you can plug into your SIM and stuff like that. But that's not the point. I just wanted you to start thinking about what sorts of solutions might be valuable to present. Move being beyond just those vulnerabilities. Now, how we present stuff also matters. This is now the Esclate. Like, you got user. Now we need to do some just Windows escalation and try to get to that domain admin. WinPs, there we go. It came to me. The WinPs of what we're talking about is starting to think, how does that CEO, the person who runs the company, who manages the money, who gives a shit and handles that first type of work and tells people what to do, how do we talk to them in a way that's helpful? That they want to hear from us and that they want to do the things that we're suggesting. So we need to start thinking about, what does business care about? They're in suits. They care about stockholder trust. They care about customer trust. They care about their stock price. They care about how much revenue we're making this quarter or this year. They're curious if they're wanting to make sure that they're competitive against others in the same region. If you've got Target, they're going to be looking at Walmart and saying, what are they doing? If you end up in the situation where you get to CISO or consult or do a pen test for Target, who have actually been in their SOC, they've got a pretty crazy pen test team. But if you get to go there and like have findings, if in your findings you're able to say, I know you're looking at these things and Walmart is doing these things, to get to what you want and be competitive against them, we should start implementing some of these other tools from like that regional bank matrix. So here's something that I learned in an MBA course. How do you learn what the business gives a shit about? At any company that's traded, that's on a stock exchange, is going to have an investor page. So this is Lockheed Martin's investor page. My MBA is through Embry-Riddle. It's actually an MBA in aviation. So like I've been to this page a lot and just do the annual reports a ton. Because SWOT analysis and that sort of thing comes out of the annual report. And it ends up looking like this. It's a PDF. There's a ton in there. I think this thing's 118 pages as a PDF. It's dense. You control F for cybersecurity, risk, or in the table of contents, look for goals, missions, priorities. Those are usually going to be up near the front. It's like, this is like Lockheed Martin's goals. Like what is Lockheed Martin trying to do this year? They want to advance air dominance. They make the Joint Strike Fighter. So like that's a piece of it, drones, all that. Drive AI innovation. Okay. Now we're starting to talk about technology. We just heard AI, what we do, intermingled. Follow me on that. Increased production of in-demand solutions. What do people want? That seems fairly straightforward. This one sounds almost stupid. We want to create things that people want to buy. No shit. Unlocking autonomous capabilities. So that's just what? Using AI for shit? Sorry, I used to be a pilot. If that's offending anyone, I will tone it down. I'm noticing. I'll change that. Enabling real-time software updates. Ooh, that's like, that right there. Business opportunity for pen testers. Like, I can help you improve your real-time software updates. Like, I found all this stuff that you can fix. Like, I can help you with a process to implement your goals. Revolution, Homeland Defense, whatever. If you're doing a pen test for Lockheed Martin and you come across things dealing with AI innovation, or shoot, anything in your pen test that can be like software updates, it's like money right there. You can use any of the terminology from here in like that first sentence of your executive report that goes to like the CEO. It's gonna be like, I feel like I wrote this. You did. That's like the number one way to get someone interested in stuff. Further down, one of their threats, one of the things that they're worried about, that they tell their shareholders that they're thinking about, is cyber attacks and other security threats and disruptions that could have a material adverse effect on our business. That right there is a very sexy term that you're like, that's just a fancy business term. Yes. Make it your fancy business term. Use that in your report. We're hackers. We're modern day pirates. Steal things from people to help them. Their terminology, turn it right back around onto them. That's some Dale Carnegie stuff, is put things in terms of the other person's interest. There's a old story in there from one of the students of Dale Carnegie classes, where this guy, they ship things out. They've got trucks that deliver to a distro center, and then they get put on other trucks and get sent out. The distro center sends him a letter saying, we get hammered Friday afternoon and have a really hard time getting stuff out. So if you could please get things in earlier on Friday, and then we'll be able to get your stuff out on time. It's like, okay, so what I'm reading is me, so I can help you. This is a shitty letter. This doesn't feel good. If instead it said, over here, we're striving to make sure that your delivery times are what you promise your customers, that they have trust in you getting the product to them. We know we're a part of that chain, and we want to make sure that we can deliver on our promise to you and your customers. Like, okay, I'm listening. If you could, because we get so backed up on Fridays, if you're able to get things in a little earlier on Friday morning instead of end of day Friday, we're going to have a much easier time making sure that we can make these things happen for you. Then it's you, me. See how it's the exact same thing? We just change the focus. Now think about vulnerabilities. Your security sucks. We found 10 criticals, 20 highs, like an incredible attachment of mediums and lows and alerts. We're not even going to count them. They're on another page, right? They're in the appendix. If you start with that, they're going to be like, well, I guess they must be good at pen testing. Congrats. Guys, fix this. Fourth type of work. You've delivered something that is fourth type of work. We want to be more than just vulnerability reporting. We want to not be stuck in just this cycle of how do we fix bugs. So start thinking about, I'm a pen tester, I'm a SOC analyst, I solve business problems. You work, you solve business problems. Put things in business terms. So with that shift, can you begin to change how you're presenting what you're finding? Really, it's not a huge shift. Just got to turn the sentence around, right? We can make a checklist out of this. I used to be a pilot. I love checklists. Checklists are my friend. If you're using like the OWASP pen test system or the SANS pen test checklist, some people do. Some people come up with their own. That might be better. That's a great debate over beers. Oh yeah. Sorry. Thank you for joining me instead of being on launch. I feel honored. I really do, because a couple of my people actually ditched me. Don't worry, there's staff for New Village. I'll get to them later. But if you can take your findings, do some 5 whys analysis. What's deeper? What is this? What does this mean? Map it out to a framework. Maybe it's CIS 18. If you can use their framework, if you know the CISO or whoever hired you or your firm, like who's your POC there? Like, what are you guys doing for risk management? Because you're doing something. You hired a pen tester. So you got to be thinking about something. Are you ISO 2700? What is it? If you can think of their framework and their terminology, that's a step. You can, all of those frameworks, you can tie back to something easy, like a cyber defense matrix. Just like checklists, I love diagrams. If I've got a diagram where I'm like, that makes sense, then I'm happy. Fuel systems on the C-130, it's like 15 pages of just reading and reading and reading, and then you get like a wing, and it's got baffles, and it's got pipes. So I'm like, okay, that's easy. I know exactly where fuel's going. Or 15 pages is just words. Diagrams are great. So if you can put things in, if you like that CDM, I'll help you get it and you can use it. Then how do we frame it for improvement? And then help come up with a plan, a roadmap. Because if you just give them, especially if it's a deep thing, if they are, if they look like this, they look like this, but they're like a Fortune 500, and you feel like they should look like this, then you don't just want to be like, you should be better at security. Like, if you can help them come up with a plan, first step, and maybe a second step, some things that you've now gotten their trust, you know you'll be back next year, hopefully giving them the next steps instead of just the same vulnerabilities you found. Maybe they implemented secure coding practices, and now you found out that they just all use the same password. Okay, that's another thing to work on. Another thing to work on. Because there will always be something to work on. If you do a pen test and have no findings, like a real pen test and you have no findings, like let me know. Because I want to introduce everyone to or that company. And yeah, good time. So I want to leave you with this. Pen testing, log analysis, digital forensics. Let's put it in a few of those terms. If you're running an incident, you help them solve things, you find out the root cause, and it's, hey, APT got in through these things. Essentially, you could give them the same findings that a pen test would of, oh, everyone's using like bad passwords, or we're not doing input sanitization. You just found it in a different way. Rather than that, can we frame it in business terms that they can implement rather than just things that'll be tossed into the fourth type of work? If you're doing SOC analysis and you keep getting alerts and you're doing your stuff, you're trying to like, okay, get rid of false positives and improve the usefulness of your true positives. Okay, well, what does this tell us? We stopped all these things, great, but they're still hitting us. What could we improve in our practice? What could I pass up through the chain of things so that we can actually make some effects? We're blocking stuff, but can we block it higher by implementing, getting a tool, using one of our tools better informing our network technicians, better informing our software engineers? Is there something that we can suggest with business terms to help? So, efforts encouraged are not enough without purpose and direction. So, you can pen test all day. You can be shit hot. Like, find fresh CVEs in every pen test and write your own 0 days. But if you can't turn that into something that the company, the organization that your client cares about, you're not really helping. And I want you to be effective and to reach the actual goals that you're trying to set out in your career. So you can change a little bit of your framing. If you can get other people to start thinking in those terms, security will move from being a cost center and a pain in the ass to being the person that they invite to the meetings. Sales, marketing, finance, they don't even think, should I go to that meeting? They're there. They're in there with the CEO and the board because they know that they're part of the business. And security, we want to be there. Sorry, I'm projecting far out for you all when you decide you finally want to wear ties and like show up in an office regularly. If you can put your recommendations into terms that the business cares about, that the CEO and COO say, oh, hey, make sure you come to this meeting. Like I want you to like tell everyone about that thing that we were talking about. Because you're no longer just talking about, an audit that we have coming up and the findings that we need to fix before it and what we're going to do afterwards, but instead, is this going to help our quarterly numbers? How are we going to be competitive against these people? And how are we going to be able to get product out faster? Because we fix these audit reporting, because we're doing these things to check to make sure our processes are good, all the security stuff. Start with what they care about. They'll listen a lot better. So that's it. Any questions?
How do you do all that? That comes to the question. Like it's understandable.
Yeah.
Just in at a high level, understand it, then implement it.
Yeah. I've found I'm at the planting seeds of ideas in people's minds set. If you start thinking about this stuff even a little bit, if you continue to think about it after this week, you'll find an opportunity. Like the next time you get a report that you can have input on the executive summary, if I've convinced you to be like, can I put this in business terms? If that thought crosses your mind, I've succeeded. If you're able to have a conversation with leadership at your next all hands or security ops meeting, and they start talking about quarterly numbers, and you're like, I think we could help you with some quarterly numbers if we were able to publicize some of these security things that we've implemented that are like really competitive and based off of what I saw our competitor put out on LinkedIn. If we, showed that we've been implementing this for years, we can kind of shift some of their boom, gain some more PR, and now you've used cybersecurity stuff you've been implementing to make the CEO happy about improving your numbers. I don't know.
It makes sense.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So what are those use frameworks that we actually go through? Because like I've looked through much stuff. There are some that are super different, like minor dependent, minor attack, but all of the other ones seem to really blur in together a lot. And it's just like
they are.
It all seems so abstract at times. And it's like I was taking up. Are you familiar with TCM?
Yeah.
I was taking their GRC course.
Yeah.
I'm on a
Jerry's course.
Yeah. I'm on a college cybersecurity. We do like 6 course, and GRC is a massive component of all that. And so I had to learn all that this person.
Yeah.
And I'm just thinking back and like, holy shit, why doesn't this matter?
Yeah.
Like it's like it just all blurs in together, and I struggle so much to find like actual practical application for like half the stuff I'm talking.
No, I get that.
So it's like
853 is a lot of controls, and 171 is like, do we need all this stuff? I'm with you. Jerry loves talking about cybersecurity or GRC. If you want to know more about GRC, Simply Cyber Academy. Jerry has, I think, a free GRC course that's a step beyond the one that you took with TCM. It's available in multiple places. If you want more GRC resources, one of the volunteers, Brittany, she was at the registration table. She actually helps run Study GRC, which is the whole YouTube channel and community about diving in.
Yeah, so his definitive GRC analysis.
Yeah.
I did go.
I used to, for a few months, I was in charge of Simply Cyber Academy for Jerry. I help run his conference in November 2nd and 3rd in Charleston. If anyone's interested. We just finalized dates and location. Um, but yeah, we can hit me up offline or after this, and I can help you get more GRC stuff. 'Cause that's hard to find. I'm with you.
Which like is there are there any like frameworks in particular that you see like used
Yeah.
the most?
Well, CIS 18. Go read CIS 18 and like learn like those first 18 steps. And do there's um backdoors and breaches decks that some of the Black Hills guys brought. Like you guys are at school, get some of those decks, and if you want them, Deb will, yeah, I was like Deb will ship you guys a box if you ask for it. I'll ask her if you want. Deb Wigley at Black Hills, and yeah, and it's online. Like Eddie's made it available on the Steam code deck. So like, if you go through some of those and be like, okay, well, which of these CIS 18 controls like matches to these cars, and like how would we solve this incident? I think I'm gonna do some backdoors and breaches over there later this afternoon. So if anyone wants to find me in main stage or the villages, I'll be doing that. Um, but yeah, some ideas. The Phoenix Project. Yeah. And so the sure. I think we've got a couple minutes before the next look. So the Phoenix Project centers around a auto parts manufacturing company, and they are it's a little older. They're trying to get out a website to handle all of their point of sale and also online sales for all their stuff. And they keep like the main character in that story because it's actually like narrative prose. It's kind of fun to read as opposed to like a textbook. The guy, his CIO and VP of IT get fired, and he's like the ops guy. His job has been to make sure that like all of his people keep the servers running. Well, now he's kind of standing in as the whole CIO, and everything's going to hell. The software development guys are way behind. They're running everything on-prem. They don't have virtual machines. They don't have a dev environment. It's a mess. And goes through learning how to treat IT ops like a manufacturing floor in in like a factory, and learns those different types of work. Because once you identify what the different types of work are and what each of these things that you're doing every day, how they fit into that, then there's certain things that you can just drop. Like, we're not going to do any of this type of work at all right now. We're going to focus on these and then find ways to kill like that fourth type of work. Because it's one of those things, if you keep stumbling over like a block in your like living room, eventually it's better if you just like hold on, stop for a second, move the block, and then go about your day, than to continue stepping over it.